Hello and welcome back to INMR. In today's podcast, I'm going to be talking all about the January transfer window. Obviously, this time around it hasn't been too busy compared to last year in the Premier League. In fact, clubs spent a total of almost 800 million last year, and this year I don't think we're even at 40. So not a lot's been spent. There aren't a lot of done deals, and if they are, they're loans with options to buy in the summer. But of course there's always rumours floating about which we are going to speak about. Not just from the Premier League, we're going to go all across Europe and of course see what's going on in Saudi Arabia. And then at the end we're going to look at the latest from various outlets. Because of course in the space of the half an hour that I could be talking, 20 minutes I could be talking, something else could suddenly change. If we start off with a few players that look to be leaving Arsenal, we've got Cedric Soares, who has emerged as a serious target for Turkish side Besiktas. Arsenal sort of deem him as just taking up the wage bill. They don't use him at all really, and a move to Turkey looks to be underway. This season he's only featured for Arsenal 3 times and none of them have been in the league, so he definitely looks like a player who is on his way out of the club. Nketiah was linked with a move away to Crystal Palace and they were actually willing to spend 30 million. However, it's not going to happen this one. Arteta said it's not going to happen. We haven't seen him play a lot, but he has scored 5 goals and I do think he's a great backup option to have. I do think that potentially there will be a move when they look to bring in a striker in the summer, but at this moment in time, Nketiah is going to stay put. It's the same for Emil Smith-Rowe, who was also linked with Crystal Palace amongst a few other Premier League sides. However, he is not expected to leave. Smith-Rowe has said that he's only interested in fighting for a place in Arsenal's starting 11, and according to Sky Sports, he will not leave the club unless something miraculous happens. Somebody that Arsenal have been looking to bring in is Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. They are actually open to selling the midfielder, but at the minute with all the financial limitations, I don't think the deal is going to happen in January. There are talks of Zubimendi having a release clause worth around 50 million, so if Arsenal are willing to part with that to bring him in, then that's the only way they'd get it done in January, but I think it's more likely to be done in the summer. The latest update is that he is very close to agreeing to join Arsenal in the summer on a pre-arrangement. Barcelona were also interested, but I don't think they believe he is worth that £50 million release clause. So Arsenal is the most likely destination, but we wouldn't see him feature in that squad this season. Karim Benzema has asked to leave Al Ittihad, which means Arsenal have had a huge boost in their pursuit for the striker. Benzema has been offered the chance to go on loan to another Saudi Arabian side after saying that he wanted to leave the club temporarily, but he turned down that proposal. I think he wants that move back to Europe in a more competitive environment. As we're seeing now, quite a few players that have made that move over to Saudi Arabia aren't enjoying it, and it's not all that it was cracked up to be. Henderson's made that move to Ajax, and now, which we're going to get onto later, players are now turning down those opportunities. Benzema's meeting with Al Ittihad obviously was quite tense reportedly. As I said, he was offered a chance to go somewhere else in Saudi Arabia, but he turned that down. Chelsea are also a side that are linked a bit more heavily than Arsenal at the moment, I believe, and also Man United, but the issue is of course those wages that Premier League clubs just can't afford to pay. With Chelsea linked with Benzema, there's obviously now the surrounding rumours around a striker and who's going to have to make way. Apparently, Broja was linked with a move away from the club and that he was up for sale for the right price. He was valued at around 50 million. However, Pochettino confirmed that there were no updates in terms of his future. Fulham and Wolves were understood to be linked with him. However, 50 million is quite steep for their standards, so I'm not sure that we're going to see him make the move away. Spurs remain interested in Conor Gallagher if Chelsea decide to cash in on him. Of course, there were rumours about him leaving in the summer, but since he's played really well this season and has worn the captain armband on numerous occasions. However, with these PSR rules, lots of clubs are having to just get rid of their key players in order to bring in enough money to go and buy someone big. And obviously with Chelsea looking at buying in players like Victor Osimhen in the summer, they do need to get rid of somebody in order to balance the books. According to TalkSport, Chelsea are also potentially going to lose Levi Colwill. Liverpool are continuing to monitor his situation at Chelsea. They were interested in him while he was at Brighton, and of course, when he went back to Chelsea, it was Liverpool and Brighton that were looking to buy him. So I don't think that interest in the defender has ever gone away. And of course, with these 3 players, Colwill, Gallagher and Broja, Because they are all homegrown talents, all of his transfer fee is pure profit. In terms of a defender who they're looking to bring in, Chelsea are linked with Everton defender Jared Braithwaite. Real Madrid are also linked. Nigerian striker Mofi is another one that's linked with Chelsea. He got 21 goals last season and this year has 8 goal contributions in 17 league games. Only 24 years old and was a Chelsea supporter growing up. Chelsea, of course, are linked with so many players in the window, but none of these look to be coming to fruition in this window. Maybe in the summer we would see it. But of course, Chelsea are short of striking options. Nicholas Jackson hasn't really lived up to the expectation, hasn't performed how a Chelsea number 9 should. Broha is obviously linked with moves away. His future is under question at the minute, so Mofi is somebody that they're potentially looking at bringing in. Another defender that Chelsea are keen on is Tobido from Nice. He's obviously played at Schalke, Barcelona. A few years ago he was one that people were really keeping an eye on as the next big thing as a centre defender, but Nice's sporting director has stressed that they have no intention of selling Tobido. He said that they are working on stability, and stability is keeping your best players. But if a club like Chelsea come knocking with the right price, I can't see how they could say no. Another defender that has been spoken about a lot in this window with many top clubs looking for him is Lenny Yoro. We've seen names like Liverpool, Man United, Real Madrid, PSG really take interest in this young player. French football experts said that there's unlikely to be a deal in January, but if there is, it would be a case of they buy him, loan him to Lille for the rest of the season, and then he is a permanent signing in the summer. Liverpool's Thiago Alcantara is not going to join Brazilian side Flamengo this month, according to Fabrizio Romano. He's been sidelined all season with a hip injury and had been reported with a January move to his boyhood club, as well as some interest from lots of Saudi clubs, but I think the Flamengo move was more appealing to him. But now that that's off, he is expected to leave on a free in the summer. Liverpool have joined the race with Atletico for Bilal El Khanous. He is a midfielder for Genk. Bayer Leverkusen are also scouting the 19-year-old. He is seen as the long-term replacement for Mo Salah, so keep an eye on this one, because obviously being compared to somebody like Salah means that he's someone with a lot of potential. For a while now, Liverpool have been linked with young midfielder Andre. However, apparently their interest in the midfielder has now petered out. They've refused to buy him after he said he wanted to see out the season in Brazil with Fluminense. Obviously their season ends at a different time to the Premier League, so he wanted to see that out and then join in this window, but now Liverpool are refusing to buy them. South American football experts said he's absolutely baffled and described Andre as a young Mascherano. A midfielder they are looking at is Koop Miners from Atalanta. The Dutchman has drawn attention from a number of clubs, but for Liverpool he is described as a prime target and they're preparing a big bid in order to secure his signature. Once again, players are going to be reluctant to leave mid-season, but potentially this is a big move that we could see happen in the summer. The other clubs that are interested are Newcastle, Napoli and Juventus. Now this one is an interesting one. I can't see how it's going to happen. I think it's just a case of the player putting pressure on Real Madrid for a new contract. That is Antonio Rudiger. Rudiger's established himself as a top centre-back at Real Madrid and now wants a better deal in return. Liverpool potentially have an offer for Rudiger, and I think it just suits him to use that in order to put pressure on Madrid in order to get the deal that he wants there. But of course Liverpool do need another centre-back, with Matip ruled out for the rest of the season and out of contract in June. Pairing him with Van Dijk would be absolutely insane. And then once Robertson's fit, that back four and goalkeeper then looks absolutely unbelievable. Manchester City are looking to sign La Liga wonder kid Savio, who we're going to do a podcast on in a few weeks. They hold a key advantage because he plays for Troyes. He's currently on loan at Girona, who are doing really well. Both clubs are in that City football group, meaning they're affiliated to Manchester City. The 19-year-old left winger has caught the eye of many top clubs with his pace and ability to find the back of the net. He's got 6 goals and 5 assists this season. And yeah, with this partnership, it means that City can get Savio for quite cheap. It would cost most clubs 30 million, but Pep Guardiola could bring him in for only 10. So that would be an unbelievable signing, and yeah, a player that we're going to speak about in the coming weeks because he is doing tremendously in La Liga at the moment. Somebody that City have actually loaned out to Girona is Yan Couto. Real Madrid are interested in buying him from Man City when he returns from loan. Another player that is doing really well in that Girona side that have surprised a lot of people this season. Joshua Kimmich to Manchester City. Now this is a big one. The German international's contract expires in 2025 and he has actually considered leaving Bayern Munich. Back in October, it was reported that Guardiola was keen on reuniting with Kimmich as Manchester City explore a potential transfer in the next couple of windows. Barcelona are also monitoring a deal and they want to reach a pre-agreement contract with Kimmich ahead of a move next year. Liverpool and Man United are also interested. So yeah, this is definitely one that I can see happening because with his contract coming up, it's a new challenge in the Premier League. I see it more likely being the Premier League than Barcelona. Manchester City would make the most sense at this moment in time. Calvin Phillips has all but complete his deal with West Ham. His medical will have been done by the time this podcast is out, and I'm sure it will probably be announced. It is a loan until the end of the season with an option to buy of around 35 million. Really good move for him and West Ham. He's been somebody that Moyes has wanted for a very long time, and it's going to be really nice to see him reignite his career because everybody knows how good Calvin Phillips is. He just wasn't able to display it at Manchester City. West Ham play Bournemouth next week, so there is the potential that we could see him make his debut. I doubt he'll start due to the fact that his fitness isn't going to be totally up to scratch, but it's not going to take long for him to get up to that level. We could see him on the pitch in a West Ham shirt very, very soon. Manchester City are the favourites to sign Bayer Leverkusen midfielder Florian Wirtz. It is said that Leverkusen would only sell him for around 111 million, which makes Manchester City the most likely destination as they are the club that have got that sort of money. While clubs such as City could make a move for him in the summer, there is a feeling that he would stay at Leverkusen for another year if Xabi Alonso stays at the club and Champions League football is secured, which at the moment is looking very likely. Al Nassr are ready to make a huge offer to Casemiro. Cristiano Ronaldo encouraged the club to make a move for the Brazilian. Casemiro hasn't played for United since November due to a hamstring injury, and United, of course, are considering this option as it's sort of now or never in terms of money they could get back. They spent 70 million for him when he signed from Real Madrid. United are also targeting Sporting Lisbon forward Marcus Edwards. They are keen on bringing him in for around 30 million this month. He obviously used to play for Tottenham but has now been doing really well in Portugal. He's got 6 goals and 5 assists this season and yeah, is reportedly worth around £30 million. United's search for a striker is constantly ongoing and apparently they've held talks for a potential transfer for Joshua Zirkzee. He's got 8 goals in all competitions this season as well as 4 assists. Tottenham and Ajax also linked with Zirkzee. Another option for them is Brobbey from Ajax. Personally, I don't think this one is a good idea. I watched him twice, once at the Amex and obviously in Amsterdam when Brighton played them. I wasn't impressed by him at all, especially at the Amex. I thought he was in Van Heck's pocket all game and I don't think that's what Man United need personally. I think they'd be better off going for somebody more experienced, Premier League proven perhaps. But of course, being an Ajax player, this is somebody that Erik ten Hag is attracted to, so this one is more likely than Zirkzee. But personally, I don't think either of them are what Man United need. Goretzka, on the other hand, is somebody that would be really good for them. Reports in Germany suggest that Goretzka is becoming disgruntled for being left out of Bayern Munich's starting 11, which potentially opens the door for an offer from Manchester United. Liverpool and Juventus are also looking at the German midfielder. Man United have had their eye on this player for a very long time, and with him being unhappy with the current situation at the club in terms of his playing time, it now looks like the possibility of this happening is quite high. Another player that Al Nassr want to bring in from United is Aaron Wan-Bissaka. A few days ago, United rejected a bid from Inter Milan. They were looking to do a swap deal with Denzel Dumfries, and now it's Al Nassr who are interested in the fullback. Another ex-teammate of Cristiano Ronaldo, so we'll see how that one goes. This isn't a player link, but it's a big one nonetheless. New shareholder of United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has pinpointed De Zerbi as a potential successor to Erik ten Hag. He's also been targeted by Real Madrid after his incredible tenure at Brighton. Julian Lopetegui and Zidane are also linked, but it seems like De Zerbi is number one on the list as most realistic and who would be best suited for United. I personally don't think he's going to do it. A De Zerbi side needs to have players with no ego. I think that's where players potentially go wrong. It's their attitude, and at United you've got so many egos and people that aren't playing for the badge that I just don't think it would suit De Zerbi at all, so I can't see him going there. Newcastle are linked with a lot of players since their takeover. They've obviously got the money to spend, they just need to balance the books. One player they're linked with is Ousmane Diomande, but lots of clubs are looking for his signature. The Sporting Lisbon defender is reportedly going to cost more than Newcastle have ever spent. Their record signing was in 2022 when they bought Isak for 63 million, and Diomande is reportedly worth around 70 million. Kieran Trippier, now this has been a big one over the last few days, one that I've been keeping people updated with on the INMR Twitter. Bayern Munich put in a bid for around 15 million for Kieran Trippier, but that was rejected by Newcastle, and after that Bayern Munich withdrew from negotiations. They decided not to put in another bid for somebody that is 33 years of age. He wasn't their first choice. Nordi Mukiele is still somebody that they're looking to bring in from PSG, but that's not looking likely as well. So it seems as though they're not going to bring in a right back this window. For a few days, it was very up in the air on what Kieran Trippier's future was going to be at Newcastle. Miguel Almiron was another player linked with a move away. Obviously, with it being so obvious that Newcastle need to balance their books, it means that lots of players are linked with moves away. Almiron was linked with a permanent deal to Saudi. There were talks ongoing between Newcastle and Al Shabab. Newcastle were open to the move in order to buy a midfielder whilst abiding by PSR and FFP rules. That is the most likely one out of these three. Obviously, Callum Wilson is the final one. He was linked with a move to Atletico Madrid. This was going to be a loan move. It was never really going to happen just due to his influence on the team. Similar to Trippier, they can't afford to lose a striker at this time. Of course, with Almiron being linked with the move to Al Shabab, that meant that a replacement would have to come in. The link was Morgan Gibbs-White. He was seen as the ideal replacement for Almiron. This is one I'd really like to see happen, and I think it will in the future. This one is pretty much done. It is Alfie Harrison to Newcastle United. The young Man City midfielder is now the latest academy signing at St James's Park. Not one that we're going to see in the first team just yet, but in a few years' time we're going to see him come into the squad, and he is a player with a lot of potential. As we spoke about earlier, Tottenham are another club that are interested in Joshua Zirkzee. He's got a release clause of 34.5 million. A big risk, I think, a player like this. We'll just wait and see. Obviously, Bayern Munich have got a buyback clause, so they are obviously another team that are going to be heavily linked to him as he does continue to improve and grow as a player. Emerson Royale was a player linked with a move to Saudi Arabia, another one that Al Nassr wanted to bring in. However, Tottenham do not want to sell him at this moment in time. It is understood that Royale is very happy at Spurs, and despite not being first choice, he is still enjoying his football at the club. I think Postecoglou's got a lot to do with that. You know, they're now in a side that's pushing for Champions League football. They're playing nice football. The style of play is fun to watch. So being a part of that is now more appealing than it was previously. This one is someone that Spurs have been really excited about. It is Antonio Nusa from Club Bruges. Tottenham have opened talks with the Belgian side, and it looks like it's almost there. It might be done by the time this podcast comes out. The deal would see him stay at loan at the Belgian club until the summer, and then he'd be a permanent signing for Tottenham at the end of the season. They looked at buying him last summer, and now it looks like it's almost done. Brentford were another team to have a look at him, but obviously the pull of Tottenham Hotspur makes it a lot more of a likely destination for Nusa. With Tottenham looking to bring in quite a few players, it means that somebody has got to go. That is Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. He has been linked with a move away for a while. He wants to leave the club before the window closes. Spurs are going to let him go, but only if it's a permanent move, whether that's now or in the summer, so he might have to wait a little longer to get his move. Napoli have registered their interest in Højbjerg, and he'll be hoping that they can get that deal across the line before the 1st of February. Brentford have signed Håkon Valdimarsson from Swedish side Elfsborg. He's a 22-year-old goalkeeper from Iceland who cost them only 2.6 million. He's undergone his medical by now, and he should be a part of the first team instantly. So this is one that was probably going to be announced by the time this podcast is out. Atletico Madrid have recently made a bid for Celtic's Matt O'Reilly. The deal is initially a loan plus the obligation to buy at the end of the season. There's been a lot of interest in O'Reilly, and Celtic have been prepared for the bids as he is such a highly rated midfielder. Girona and Inter Milan were also clubs that were interested. Luton are looking to buy Kyle Bartley from West Brom. Obviously, with Tom Lockyer being out for the foreseeable future, they need to bring in an experienced centre-back who replace him. The 32-year-old has only 6 months remaining on his contract with West Brom, so this could be one that they get really, really cheap to help them push for Premier League survival in the final months of the season. Brighton have been tracking midfielder Arthur Vermeeren for months and have advantages in securing a deal. This has actually since changed. He is in Madrid today, I believe, arranging a deal. There are parts that he's not totally convinced of, as Vermeeren's biggest priority was the club's project, which obviously makes Brighton quite appealing. However, I'm not totally sure on what the project is at Atletico Madrid. Obviously, I know more about Brighton, but of course, with a club like Madrid being interested, they are probably now the more likely destination, and I think that is one that we're going to see in a few days. So I think Brighton have just missed out there. With Vermeeren, Atletico Madrid is the most likely destination. Aston Villa, a deal could be in sight for Middlesbrough player Morgan Rogers. Borough are ready to accept between 10 and 12 million. He's had a lot of talk around him. Obviously got that goal against Chelsea a few days ago, and has been doing really well in the Championship under Michael Carrick this season. One player that Brighton have all but complete is Kamari Doyle from Southampton. He is going straight into the academy, I believe. I don't think he's somebody that goes straight into the first team, but a very exciting youth talent that Brighton have secured. Sheffield United are interested in Nottingham Forest defender Joe Worrell. They are also close to bringing in a goalkeeper. Everton's Abdoulaye Doucouré is linked with a move to Saudi Arabia. Steven Gerrard's side Al Ettifaq are looking to fill the gap that's been left in midfield by Jordan Henderson. Tosin Adarabioyo has had a few clubs looking for him, and AC Milan have made contact, with the Fulham defender being out of contract at the end of the season. This is a potential one that could really slip through the cracks for Fulham. He's already rejected 2 contract extensions from the club. For him to leave on a free would be really poor from Fulham, because he's a defender that's been really solid and does have a lot of potential. Here we are then, the big one. Victor Osimhen. Chelsea are reportedly ready to pay his release clause in the summer. He's recently signed a new deal with Napoli that includes a clause of around 120 to 130 million euros. Arsenal and Real Madrid are other clubs that have been linked, but Chelsea, in my opinion, is the most likely destination. Osimhen has recently said in an interview that his future is decided. He knows his next club, which makes things really interesting. I hope that it is Chelsea, because they desperately need a quality number 9, and yeah, this is definitely one to keep an eye on in the next few months. Potential Chelsea outgoing is Trevor Chalobah. Nottingham Forest are plotting a bold move for the Chelsea defender. He hasn't played since the end of last season and is still recovering from a hamstring injury. Of course, if Sheffield United do get Joe Worrell, they need a replacement, and Chalobah is quite an optimistic one, but they are going to go for it. West Ham aren't done yet with their signings either. Talks are advancing in terms of the signing of Ibrahim Osman. It's understood that it's going to cost around 15 million to bring in the winger, and they are also exploring a deal for Al Ittihad forward Jota. Osman is the more likely, but they are linked with Jota too. Real Sociedad's Kubo has been offered a contract from Al Nassr worth up to 40 million euros, but he said no. As I spoke about earlier, I do think now that the Saudi Arabian League isn't all that it's cracked up to be, according to players that have moved over there, we are going to see more players that decide actually it's probably not worth it. Yes, it's a lot of money, but they're getting plenty at these European clubs. He said no, and I think a lot of players are going to follow in Kubo's footsteps. This is a done deal for Bayer Leverkusen. Borja Iglesias is going to replace Victor Boniface, who's out until April. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed this deal. It will be loan until the end of the season with an €8 million buy option clause. This is a really interesting one. Nottingham Forest are in talks with Borussia Dortmund to sign Gio Reyna. this is going to be a loan deal with an option to buy clause. The loan fee and the salary split is still being discussed between the clubs, but Rayner has accepted Nottingham Forest as the destination. However, Marseille are also advancing in talks to bring him in. Another player that Forest are interested in is Carlos Borges from Ajax. This would be a loan deal as well. He obviously left from Manchester City in the summer. I don't know how well he's done in the league, but once again, when he played against Brighton, I wasn't massively impressed. But there's no doubt that he is a very good player with a lot of potential. Burnley are also interested, but I'd say Nottingham Forest would be the more likely out of the two. Man United are keen to get rid of Jadon Sancho in a permanent deal in the summer. He's obviously currently on loan at Borussia Dortmund. He's been offered to Saudi Arabian clubs for around 50 million. This is a similar case for Brazilian winger Antony. He's been offered for 50 million too. United looking to claw back some of the heavy investment they made in the two wingers. Obviously they're going to make a loss, but I think, if you can get 100 million back for the pair, it's not as bad. Antony I could potentially see accepting this deal, but Jadon Sancho, I do think he just wants that permanent move to Borussia Dortmund. And that is it in terms of what's on here so far. If we just have a look at anything that has potentially progressed since we started the podcast. Kylian Mbappe has received an offer to join Real Madrid as a free agent next summer and another to renew his contract with PSG, but still remains undecided. This one is going to go right down to the wire in my opinion. Here we go. Brighton are still closely following Ezequiel Fernandez and are trying to take him away from Boca Juniors. Obviously they've already bought in Valentin Barco from there, and this is another player that they're looking at buying. If you haven't already, go and check out the inmr Twitter page. There's constant updates on there, not just for transfers, as you can see as well. We've got all the live scores. Obviously loads could change between this podcast coming out and the end of the window, so make sure to go and follow that to keep up with all the latest over the next week. That is where I'm going to end today's podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you next week with another one.